Hi, welcome to What's That Origin, where we will be discussing the origin stories of characters or ideas from movies, shows, and books. And if you find yourself liking these videos, then please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and share links to your social medias. Let's get started. Hi, today we will be discussing the character Wart from The Sword and the Stone, the Disney movie that came out in 1963. This is one of my favorite films from Disney, and I personally think it is extremely underrated. It is on Disney Plus. I feel like people should go and watch it, but very underrated. But today we're going to be talking about the character Wart. So the story of the movie begins with this little, almost like borderline abused child that goes by the name of Wart by his foster father, Sir Ector, and his foster brother, Sir Kay, or he's not really a sir yet, he's hoping to become a knight. One day when he's out hunting with his foster brother shoots an arrow at a deer, misses, but the arrow still goes into the woods, and he forces Wart to go and fetch the arrow. While in the wood, Wart stumbles upon a very cluttered small hut or a cabin house where he finds the wizard Merlin and Merlin's talking owl Archimedes, and Merlin informs him that he's late and that he's gonna be his instructor from then on. No ifs, ands, buts about it. I'm your teacher. And I just love the Merlin character. I think he's so funny, and the owl. And my favorite part in the movie is probably when the little sugar cup is abusing the teapot, who is apparently extremely old. So anyways, after getting the permission from Wart's foster father, if you want to call it permission, so Merlin takes over Wart's lessons, like said, and they go on all sorts of adventures that kind of find them in trouble a lot. Merlin shapeshifts them into various animals, like a squirrel and a fish and a bird, and these lessons never pan out the way that he's expecting them to, I think. It gets to a point in the movie where Sir Ector tells Wart that he could be Kay's squire, which basically means that he's like his foster brother's errand boy. You know, cleans his armor, gives him his coffee. When Wart goes to tell Merlin, hey, you know, I'm getting what I want, I'm gonna be a squire and then work my way up, Merlin doesn't like that idea. He thinks that Wart has too much potential to just be all brawn and no brain. So they get into a fight and Merlin leaves. He shoots off to like Bermuda. And so Wart goes with his foster family to into the kingdom, where there is a tournament happening where the winner is going to determine the next king of England. Because before, in order to determine the king of England, there was a sword set into a stone, but no one was able to pull it out. So their alternative was to instead have a tournament, because so many years had gone by, and so they figured, you know, let's just bash each other's brains in, and whoever wins is the king. So as Kay's squire, Wart is supposed to make sure that the knight's sword is going with him. Surprise! He forgets his brother's sword, and wanting to not look completely stupid, he frantically starts looking for a sword, and he finds one in a courtyard, in an abandoned courtyard. The sword's got some, you know, weeds growing around it. It looks really old, and he thinks, well, this is better than nothing. It's probably blunt, but it's better than nothing. So he pulls the sword out, no problem at all, and he runs back to his foster father, who instantly recognizes the sword as the famous sword that was put into this anvil, not a stone, an anvil, but it is called from stone. And he demands that Wart show them. They go back, the sword's put back in, and then Wart just pulls it back out. And when people start inquiring, you know, what's this child's name? He's gonna be king. Sir Ector goes, his name is Arthur. And so Arthur is the new king. And then Merlin comes back at the end of the movie and tells him how wonderful the future is and how amazing his reign's gonna be, and how famous, you know, Arthur becomes. How he's gonna start the Knights of the Round Table, and the movie is really just the beginning of who King Arthur is gonna be. And so now that we have gone into that part, we're gonna go into Arthur's origin story, which a lot of these, especially like Disney movies, they have like some sliver of an original story, and Arthur is definitely no exception. He comes from a really, really old legend, because it's not really determined whether or not Arthur was a real person, although people think that he was based off of a real person, and they just gave him the name Arthur. They believe that he was based off of a Welsh, I guess more like a war hero. I love my new mug. I got it for Christmas. Sword and Stone. Anyways, so the most popular version, because like with myths or legends or folk tales, there's going to be a whole bunch of different versions of the same story, the same figures. Oldest version of King Arthur comes from Geoffrey Monmouth. He was a Welsh cleric, and he placed Arthur at around late 5th century, early 6th century, for the time that he would have been alive. And he's the one who kind of brought the legend to life. And he himself lived in like year 1090 something. Really, really long time ago. 1,000 years ago. So there's many different versions, and Geoffrey's isn't the only version of King Arthur. So a lot of versions kind of got melded together, so you don't know where Geoffrey begins and like some other person's ends. So anyways, in the more popular versions, Arthur is the illegitimate son of King Uther Pendragon of Camelot. Was conceived was Uther made a deal with Merlin, the wizard, to somehow get him Lady Igraine, who was the wife of his enemy, and with the price that if she were to have a child, that Merlin would be responsible for that child, and that Uther and Igraine would not be able to see him. So this was agreed upon, supposedly, and Merlin disguised Uther as Igraine's husband, who went off into battle and died because of Uther, because they were at war. So Uther killed her husband while also pretending to be her husband, and he slept with her without her knowing. And that's how we get Arthur. And then Arthur was tutored by Merlin for his whole childhood. Also, it should be mentioned real quick that Igraine already had children with her husband. You had Morgan Le Fay, Morgause, and one called Elaine. And these would be Arthur's half-sisters. So when Uther dies, he leaves Camelot, or all of Great Britain, with no heir to the throne. Merlin takes the opportunity to show Arthur that he is the true king of Camelot. So he has this sword embedded in a stone. Now, if you ever watched, there's a 19... Her coffee. There is a 98 mini-series, a British mini-series with Sam Neill in it, playing Merlin, and it actually depicts this part of the story really well, and I love this. Oh, you're all out of drink. She's all out of coffee. Because, you know, I give my 2-year-old coffee in this house. It's really hot chocolate. Anyway, it really goes into the more popular legend of Arthur. Highly recommend it. And anyways, so he tricks Arthur into seeing if he can pull out this sword from this stone. Now, this sword shouldn't be confused with Excalibur. Excalibur would come later in his life. By most accounts, this is a separate sword. Want some coffee? It's a snowstorm out today, so we have coffee. So yeah, Excalibur and this sword, in some versions they are the same exact sword, but in other versions they are not the same sword. Excalibur comes, like I said, much later in his life. So Arthur pulls out the sword effortlessly, because, you know, who didn't see that happening? And Merlin then dubs him the new King of Camelot. And then all of Arthur's adventures get to begin. He gets to marry Guinevere, and, you know, get the Knights of the Round Table together, and you know, send people out for the Holy Grail, and lose Guinevere to one of his knights, and yeah. He started the Knights of the Round Table, and it's supposed to be more, I think, of a symbolic symbol. You know, it's a round table. There's no corners. There's no head or no end. So whoever sits at the table with King Arthur, they're considered his equals at the table. So everyone can share their opinions, and everyone's opinion is valued and matters. And when it comes to matters of the kingdom, that's where they discuss, you know, what's going to happen. You know, are we going to raise taxes, and that sort of thing. And the symbol has been used since then. It's been brought down through the many generations. King Henry VIII had his own round table, with him in the center of the table. And now I know what you're thinking, like center. Well, how they have it put up, he's in the center, because, you know, he was just that kind of a guy. In a lot of versions of King Arthur, he marries a beautiful woman named Guinevere, who becomes his queen. Now, these two never seem to have children together. I haven't read a version yet where they have a child together. So I guess when he would go away, whether to battle or, you know, diplomatic reasons, she stayed behind, as most queens at the time did, and she started having an affair with Sir Lancelot, which was one of his most trusted knights, best friend. The affair went on for a very long time, to the point where they were caught. So yeah, they were caught, and Arthur had to make the decision whether or not Guinevere was going to die for her crimes, because it was considered treason for a queen to have an extramarital affair against her husband, the king. And Arthur was a very just and kind ruler, and he still did love Guinevere very much. So they plotted depending on what version, I guess, a daring rescue of her, because she was supposed to be killed. She was supposed to be put on a a fire spit and burned to death. Which would be a horrible way to go. I don't know why people would ever do that. And so anyways, so she is saved. And in some versions, she comes back and Arthur forgives her. And in versions where this happens, she marries the man who kills Arthur, you know. So he's a really kind guy, so he shoots himself in the foot a lot. So anyways, and she's not the only one where he had problems with romantically, depending on what version. Mordred, who we'll get to a little bit later, but he is the son of one of Arthur's sisters, Morgan Le Fay, or Margot's, it's one of the two. And in some versions, Arthur is the father, which means that he had a relationship with one of his sisters, whether knowing or unknowing. Oh, she finished her coffee. All gone. And, or he was tricked. And then other versions, Mordred is not his son, but is still his nephew. So no matter how you look at it, they're related. And so Mordred comes to the kingdom. Arthur more or less accepts him. And to the point where Mordred is very trusted by Arthur and most of the knights. And so when Arthur started to leave to go on diplomatic, you know, adventures or battles, he would leave Mordred in charge of the kingdom. Like, you know, here's the keys to the kingdom. One of the times when Arthur leaves, Mordred declares himself the new king of Camelot while Arthur is gone. And in the versions where Guinevere is still there, Mordred marries Guinevere. Whether she willingly goes along with it or not, I'm not quite sure. I'm not sure. But anyway, so Arthur hears what his son nephew is up to, and thank you, and returns home to see the little brat took his. Oh, she wants the microphone. So he returns home to see that the brat is on his throne, and he didn't plan on giving it up. So this trickles down into the battle to be known as the Battle of Camelin. And for this battle, and I think for ones before, Merlin brought Arthur to the Lady of the Lake. She's the one who has Excalibur, and he has to ask her for Excalibur, which she willingly gives him, seeing that he is worthy enough for it. And it is said that Excalibur was forged on the island of Avalon, which is, it's not really like heaven, but it's known as a paradise where people don't die, anyone can get healed, and it's, yeah. So the sword was said to be forged on Avalon, which means that it's supposed to be a pretty much indestructible sword. Arthur takes this sword with him into battle against Mordred. And once again, there's different versions of this battle where Mordred, he may die, he may not, but in a lot of versions I've read, Arthur does kill him, but not before getting a mortal blow from Mordred, to the point where Arthur has to be taken from the battle, and it's the intent to bring him to Avalon to where he can heal. And before he goes to Avalon, he instructs his knights to cast the sword of Excalibur back into the lake. And you know, it's a really powerful sword. You're guaranteed to win battle with this sword, which, like I said, Arthur did win the battle, but he was mortally wounded. But anyways, so the sword does get cast back into the lake, and the Lady of the Lake extends her hand up, grabs the sword, and the sword is never seen again. And then Arthur is brought to Avalon, and he's left there with the hopes that he will heal and come back. But he has not come back yet. We are in 2021, and he still hasn't come back. So either he is living a very long life in Avalon, or he died on an island in the middle of nowhere. Let's be optimistic. It's 2021 now. So that's the rundown of who King Arthur was, and how he came to be. And like I said, I recommended watching the mini series Merlin from 1998. I really like that series. And another series that I really liked was 2010, 9, it was somewhere around that time, of another Merlin series. It's not as accurate as the other legends, as the other series, but it is very good to watch. And in later videos we'll probably be going more into the characters like Morgan and Morgan Le Fay and Merlin and Guinevere, Lancelot. And yeah, so be sure to like and subscribe, and feel free to share this link with your friends, you know, if they are history buffs like I am. All right, have a great day.